Welcome, beautiful friends! It's Tuesday night, Cindy.
It is Tuesday night.
Where are we?
St. Mary's, Georgia.
St. Mary's, Georgia. You know, I heard a joke one time that the only reason Florida didn't fall off the United States was because Georgia sucked so bad. I don't think that's true at all.
Where did you hear that?
It was some, back when you're talking about like Georgia and Florida playing football or something.
Oh,
you have to disparage not only the other team, but their whole state.
Oh, I see.
I think Georgia's a perfectly lovely place.
It's been good for
Kind of
us.
heaven on earth here. Hey, friends. Welcome to Tuesday night. I think this is session 12 for us.
Could be.
So, before we get started, right now, simply notice where your light is focused. Are you aware? Have you exercised the limitless power of your freedom as light to move it towards light, to move it towards spacious presence? Or did you come to this joining at a different level of awareness? Just be really honest with yourself. Not to beat yourself up, but just let light report what is. Because if we relegate what we're doing here in our little online mystery school, because we're all mystics discovering truth for ourselves. We're not here to peddle beliefs. If you want beliefs, go to church, go to a Course in Miracles group. We're not here to peddle beliefs, and we're not here to encourage trust. We're here to move past all of them into our own direct and intimate knowing or gnosis, cultivating our own light and its infinite power and authority to be in a state of knowing, not needing trust, gratefully thinking, letting go of and setting down the burden of faith. Those things are not necessary in truth. We can simply abide in a felt, feeling communion using the simple and infinitely powerful light that we each are, sovereign with each of us, and choosing to focus that light onto the spacious presence, this vast, infinite field of potential from which we arise. Or we can continue our habituated focusing that light through the sensory apparatus of this body-mind and all of the associated feelings of separation and needing to become that go with that choice. So we use the power of light to choose to be the body-mind, separate, alone, rooted in time and space, birth and death, sickness. Or we use the power of that light to focus on and become the formless spirit that we are. The formless power of creation that manifests our temporary experiences. So just be really honest with yourself. Where am I? And who am I based on where I choose to freely focus my light, what I choose to identify as? Yeshua's primary and simplest teaching, choose first the queendom. He didn't actually say seek. That was a really bad translation. He simply said choose it. Tubor, repent, turn around, focus your light, choose again, and identify with what your truth is. When we come together in that union, we bring an extraordinary power to our union. If we don't come together in that light, in that spacious presence, we bring a bunch of separate points of view, all seemingly separate from that source. We become seekers, not beers of truth. So by now in our journey, you each, in your own unique way, have cultivated within you the sovereign ability to abide in a feeling communion with that spacious presence. Liberating your light from focusing exclusively on the temporary things of time and space, liberating that light to connect with and be informed from an eternal spirit. Our soul, if you will, the one mind of God, the Christ mind. We can give it a bunch of names. The names don't really matter. But you know it when you feel it. Isn't that cool, honey? How does it feel for you?
It's very sweet.
It's very, very sweet. And what if our journey to the queendom, to the kingdom, is no harder than this? What if it doesn't require years of dedicated meditation? What if it doesn't require mastering a thought system of forgiveness? What if it doesn't require a super secret chakra clearing meditation? What if it doesn't require the ability to hold your body in very specific and, for me, totally uncomfortable body positions? What if there is no prerequisite?
What if it didn't require self-discipline?
Oh, that would be liberating, wouldn't it?
You didn't have to whip yourself into shape.
This truth is already true. It is what we are. It's what we were created to be. It already is ours. All of this dedication to learning or dedication to becoming or dedication to achievement are all expressions of the spiritualized ego denying this truth and insisting it must be found in the future, and it is hard and takes time. What a mind fuck we've done with ourselves. The kingdom is entered through choice.
Sorry.
Go ahead, laugh it up, babe. Go for it. When Yeshua said knock and it will be open to you, we turn our light, which is a choice to knock, boom, there it is. That's why it's grace. We enter the queendom through the same grace, the same freedom of free will, of use of light that we used to leave it. We didn't actually leave it, but we've used our light to totally ignore its loving presence. What if we can let go of all seeking, effortlessly, simply repurpose and refocus our light onto the truth and rest in an already perfect and whole communion. Now, just for a moment, allow yourself to be God itself and let yourself know it is this easy. It is right now. It is for all, and there are no requirements. There are no prerequisites, save the totally free will and sovereign choice of every free point of light. Christina, does that feel true in your God self being? Christina nods. How about you, Angela? Does that feel true in your God self being? Yes. Angela gives a thumbs up. Is there anybody that got a no in your spirit? Your mind might have said, oh, no. I haven't finished my excavation of my past lifetimes. I still get mad when my sports team loses. Or I still feel guilty about masturbating. Your mind may have all kinds of reasons or excuses, but they're just that. They're just reasons, they're just excuses. They're not true. Wow. So what are we going to talk about tonight now that we've established the truth and we're all deeply rooted in it? Maybe we just laugh. We'll do our laughing that we screwed up on Sunday.
You said something about neutrality.
Oh, yes, neutrality. We're going to talk about neutrality and free will. So if you have been playing like the curious mystics that we are, not playing for achievement, not playing to get it right, not playing to better somebody else, but just playing to be in your own self-discovery, you have probably realized, cognized, known some aspects of this spacious presence. I would suspect that you realize that it contains zero judgment. Have you realized that, Cindy? I'm going to let you be the spokesman. Your body's dancing in affirmation for that. It contains zero judgment. It is always effortlessly present. It is not something that the doer, the thinking body mind, it is not something that we create or make. It already is. And you probably have realized for yourself that this space, this pure presence, allows all things. It accepts you exactly as you are in this moment. It suffuses and embraces all things. And in doing so, it remains totally transcendent of all comings and goings. So if you put all of those things together, there's an absolute neutrality of this presence. This presence will say yes to experiences of joy, and it will say yes to experiences of suffering. It will say yes to nuclear weapons, and it will say yes to feeding the children. It is absolutely neutral. It simply is. It has no preferences. It has no needs. It has no expectations. It has no desire. It simply neutrally is. So let yourself simply feel into that for yourself as you rest there in spacious presence, consciously focusing your light where you would choose it to be, on your eternal spirit, on your connection to all that is. Let yourself feel for yourself. Spirit, is it true that all things are neutral? Your mind may have lots of opinions about that, or it may want to pipe up and quote the course lesson, all events are neutral, but let yourself know it in the sovereignty of your own being. Let yourself feel it in communion with your own eternal spirit. Spirit, is it true that all is neutral? Now, this discovery can be devastating to the part of your mind that wants to give God definitions, that wants to say, oh, God is love, God is truth, God is peace, God is joy, that ceaselessly wants to project something onto this eternal neutrality. God is good, God is light. Well, all of those qualities we want to assign to God inevitably have an opposite. We will project from our own consciousness a duality onto God, onto spacious presence, onto source, however you want to see it, because our mind does not truly know neutrality. We've always been taught and conditioned that things are good or bad, right or wrong, should or shouldn't, must not, have to, shouldn't have. So let your being rest in that spacious self and truly feel neutrality is the ground of presence itself. Our thinking minds, what Yeshua calls the ego, is the opposite of neutrality. It is the meaning-making machine, always assigning values, judgments, likes, dislikes, preferences, you name it. And we have all learned that conditioning. We have all taken on those beliefs and perceptions from a world and from those who did not know of neutrality. They were not connected to the spirit. Teachers who taught good and bad, earning God's love, repenting of your sins, fearing the wrath and punishment of a crazy fucking creator that somebody made up in their own mind. Let yourself feel the absolute neutrality, the silent yes that presence says to all things. I am that I am is a statement which claims the Holy Trinity as your identity. I exist. I am free to choose. My choices create my experience. So let's actually explore the relationship between neutrality and choice, or neutrality and truly free will. So let yourself feel the fear in your being of choosing. Let yourself feel the overwhelm that you carry at the prospect of having to make decisions and choices. Let yourself recognize how much of your consciousness is devoted to making the right choices and avoiding the wrong ones. And let yourself feel how constricted, how painful, how awkward that feels for your will, your choosing capacity to be so limited within a field of right and wrong, good and bad. I have shared before and I'll share it again now. Dis-ease, all forms of dis-ease are the effects of the belief that you have chosen wrongly. And the belief in death is the belief that you have chosen so poorly, you should lose the ability to choose. You should cease to exist. That's the ego's attempt to be free of the pain of being a chooser. If I die, I'll be free of this inner conflict of choosing, getting it wrong, suffering the consequences, yada, yada, yada. But let's be mystics and explore, is that actually true? Spirit, please show my friends one of their terrible choices from the past. One of the ones that they say was so bad and so wrong. And I hope you don't get me married. So let that just be shown to you. And let yourself know in your feeling communion, even though I made that choice, do I still remain free now to choose again? Has that choice that I have labeled as terrible or bad or wrong, has it in any way limited my ability to choose now? Now, granted, you might not want to make that choice again, but recognize that you are totally free to make that choice again or not. And the power of choice itself is never removed or limited, no matter how you use it. There are no eternal consequences to any choice. Temporary choices absolutely create temporary experiences, and thank God for that. But they have no eternal effects. They do not in any way limit your light's ability to choose. So part of awakening, part of liberation, is liberating ourselves from the mind's choosing mechanism. Because when we choose within our mind, we're choosing from fear. We're playing the game of right or wrong, good or bad, should or shouldn't. I got to make this choice in order to be spiritual. The fact that you can even choose already makes you spiritual. Already makes you an extension of the Creator. So recognizing absolute neutrality is what will liberate your choice and finally restore your free will. Free from the definitions imposed within the thinking mind learned in this world. Free from the fear of using it wrongly. Free from the dis-ease. Free from the belief in death. Finally, you can liberate yourself into true, free will, like the Creator created you. So let's give a little example. So if you walked into the ice cream store in your human body-mind consciousness, you might look at the 31 flavors and engage a whole litany of things in your consciousness to help you choose. Well, which one's low fat? Which one doesn't have nuts in it because I got a nut allergy? Do they have any gluten-free ice cream? Or all the things that we learn And all of those things our mind tells us are helping us to choose, they're actually limiting our freedom of choice. So you would not look at 31 flavors with absolute neutrality, recognizing that each flavor is perfectly equal to the next, and a choice to taste it will merely create an experience. But when you choose from your body, mind, and all of its good, bad, right, wrong, you're playing the game of I want to have this experience and avoid that experience. I want to have an ice cream I like and not one I don't like. That limits your will. That imprisons your freedom. That limits your choice. That's not the neutrality of spirit. If you come into that ice cream store in perfect neutrality, you will marvel that ice cream can even exist. And you will marvel and be grateful for the choice to have 31 different experiences. And you may have those experiences, and each neutral experience will merely teach you which flavors you would prefer over others. Not because they're better or they're right or they're spiritual, because they're kosher. They simply will create experience. And then you remain free to experience that experience and choose as you freely will. So the relationship between neutrality and absolute sovereign free will, they're like one and the same. They're two sides of one coin. When you liberate from the good, bad, spiritual, unspiritual, love, fear, all that crap that rolls around in our mind, when you liberate yourself from that, which if you've been on a spiritual path, you'll recognize you're much more scared than you were before. You know, you're analyzing every choice way more now than you were before. But when you liberate yourself from that game, resting your light in presence, you can liberate yourself into the totally free and neutral experience of an eternal creator. Choosing to have experience, not because the experience proves you're holy, or it proves you're a piece of shit, or it proves you're this or that, but simply as an eternal creator, you can freely choose to have a neutral experience, have your experience, and then move on to choose whatever you will in the next moment or the next day. So let yourself feel the difference from your body-mind structure, how your will has not been free because it's bound and encumbered by all the dualities of should, shouldn't, must, ought to, what I should feel, what I shouldn't feel. This feeling proves I'm holy. This feeling proves I'm wrong. One is, blah, blah, blah. Let yourself just truly feel that. We know it intimately. Now focus your light on spacious presence and allow yourself to know, feel, and know in the intimacy of your own being the absolute neutrality of light and presence. absolute neutrality of God's will. And let yourself feel the freedom and the joy that Spirit feels with an absolutely unlimited and truly free will to choose in a sphere and spacious presence of absolute neutrality. As Spirit, I am free to safely experience any and all things. It was from that infinite field of neutrality that we all joyfully executed our totally free will to have the neutral experience of separation embodied in a body on earth. But then we conveniently forgot that we were free and it was neutral. And then what the fuck was I thinking with this tiny mad idea? Shit, I fucked this up. Gosh, why would I have chosen those parents? They were a crappy flavor. Oh, wow. Let yourself feel the difference between your body-mind's fear-based choice mechanism and the boundless joy of the Spirit's freedom as light in an infinite field of loving neutrality. I see John Crotty shaking his head. He can feel it is good. It is very, very good. So the world has taught us that we might enter the kingdom as the effect of good choices. If we serve others, if we sacrifice, if we don't have sex, if we don't do this, if we do that, blah, 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 blah. When in truth, that's all a crazy distraction, so that we will not simply, effortlessly choose, using the power of our light, to enter a feeling communion, an attunement to the absolute neutrality of presence, the loving neutrality of God's consciousness, which gives us truly free will. Can you feel the different level of power that you can choose with between that body-mind thinking, duality, fear-based choice, and the infinite free power of Christ itself? The hell of choosing correct flavors of ice cream in your body-mind, or the glorious power of a limitless free will that creates universes. You determine who you are, and you determine the power with which you choose. A limited will associated with a body-mind, or an absolutely free and unlimited will from your eternal Christ self. In that limitless neutrality, your choices merely and joyfully create experience. Your choices nor your experiences define you. Our body mind thinks our choices and our experiences define it. Doesn't that suck? Because aren't we so frightened to make this choice? Or, oh my gosh, if I have this experience, I'm clearly not spiritual. Cindy has to have her gallbladder out. Well, she's not spiritual. She's got to do some forgiveness because she wouldn't have her gallbladder out if she was holy. Isn't that crapola? Yeah, they punched a couple holes in you to get that out. So can you feel and are you ready to allow your being to know the absolute neutrality of presence, the neutrality of God, the neutrality of consciousness, the neutrality of Christ's mind, the power of the will, totally free, liberated from all the thoughts and teachings and beliefs and shit of the world, to freely create. I'm going to tell you a version of the prodigal son story based on this. So each of us metaphorically stood before the Creator, free and sovereign and unlimited, totally neutral. And we said to the Creator, am I free to take my power in your eternal presence and create whatever I wish? And the Father merely blesses you and says, yes, my beloved, you are free. You are free. You are free. So off we went. We chose the tiny mad idea. We became associated with a body in time and space. And we learned conditionality. We learned right and wrong. We were spanked for one choice and given a gold star for another choice. Our freedom was conditioned right out of us by our collusion. We played along. And then, like the prodigal son, we found ourselves in want. We found ourselves in fear. We found ourselves in pain. We found ourselves in guilt. We found ourselves in all manner of things, judgments that were hurtful. We had lost the neutrality. We had lost our truly free will. And then we became frightened to return to a Creator that we now projected in our image. Because we had learned right and wrong, we assume and project that the Creator plays that game too. And we fear the punishment that we've already given to ourselves. The crucifixions that we have already crucified ourselves over and over and over. And some of us in really creative ways, as though crucifying ourselves would free us. Judging ourselves, harming ourselves, hurting ourselves would free us. But eventually it gets to be too much, and we can't take it anymore, and we want the truth again. And we return through a context like this beautiful circle that we have together, in which we can remember the truth of what we are, light itself, in an infinite field of neutral presence, with an absolutely free, and unencumbered will to create whatever experience we would choose. And we return to the source only to be ecstatically embraced and celebrated and invited to come into the celebration as totally free and unlimited creators. Begun in neutrality, a journey into conditionality, where choice is limited, and a return to neutrality, where choice is finally liberated to be truly free. Cindy's got some questions. Oh, we've got some questions over here. Okay. Patricia says, as Yeshua says, the joke is on us. Yes. And are you ready to get the punchline? Here's the punchline from the joke we played on ourselves. Choose again! Patricia says, when I'm in neutrality, often unspeakable joy arises. Does this mean I've moved out of neutrality? Well, Patricia, just feel into that feeling for yourself and feel what you feel when I ask this question. Spirit, is this unspeakable joy the nature of my very neutral and free being? Or when I feel it, have I lost or abandoned that truth? For those of you who can see Patricia, if you could, we don't need to hear her answer because it was all over her body language. It is all over her radiant being right now. But I'm going to unmute you so you can share. What answer did you get, my friend?
The answer that came through is, what joy is your nature?
Yes. Wouldn't joy be the nature of an infinitely free creator who cannot harm themselves, cannot harm another, and is infinitely free to play in the fields of the Lord?
It's just that the ego mind says, well, when you're in joy, you're not in neutral gear.
Ah, well, of course the ego mind would say that, wouldn't it?
So, there's joy and there's sadness, opposites, duality.
Yeah, well, let's talk
about. So if you're in one or the other.
So this joy that you talk about, this unspeakable joy, it arises naturally. It's not the effect of situations and circumstances that your body determines are acceptable.
It arises spontaneously.
Well, can you feel the difference between those two? An unconditional, causeless joy of spirit versus the joy within the body mind that is at the effect of pleasant situations and circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So that's your own litmus test for, is this joy simply I am, or is this joy I just won the lottery?
No.
Yeah, you see what I mean? So, of course, the ego will do this. It will try and dumb down our spiritual truth, our knowing, and try and drag it into duality to diminish it and get you to question its legitimacy, question its authenticity, to move from knowing into doubt and evaluation. That's the ego strategy, to remove the power from that free, radically free, causeless joy to an evaluative thought structure within the mind itself.
Yeah, there was thinking going on that neutrality is an emptiness. It's a presence and emptiness. So there's not this and there's not that. It's just like a flat line.
Right.
So hence the question then arose, well, if this joy naturally arises, I'm no longer on the flat line, the flat line's gone, shoo.
Maybe that's the
Yeah,
indication that you actually are on the flat line.
Mm.
And if it's not present, maybe you've moved away from that truth.
Run that by me again, John Mark.
Yeah. So maybe the presence of that causeless joy, and that is different than like, whoa! You know, it's not it can be a really exuberant kind of thing, but it's usually much more intimate and subtle.
Yes.
It tends to come, at least in my experience, with the ripples of laughter, whether they're internal or you give them expression. So that truth, what if that is the byproduct of your present connection and communion?
Yes, that's how it feels.
Yeah. And from that place, can you let yourself recognize that's the foundation from which God and its offspring ceaselessly create from and in that joy? Can you feel that within your own being?
Definitely.
Yeah. So
thank you.
You're welcome. So you have your own gnosis, but then our mind does what it does to move us away from gnosis and engage us in the right, wrong, good, bad duality kind of thing. So we have a choice. Do I go with this knowing, as subtle and intimate as it might be, or do I go into the evaluative place in my mind that's trying to get you into a state of being that it thinks is true, that it has interpreted neutrality to be? Because as you have discovered, neutrality and joy, a causeless joy, are synonymous.
Yes.
Free will and neutrality and joy are synonymous. Yeah. Ooh, brilliant. So can you mute yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what else is here. Thank you, Patricia. So Deborah asks, if spacious presence is neutral, do that mean it has no effect, an emptiness without ego? Quite the contrary. Despite the fact that spacious presence is neutral, it is the field of all power over heaven and earth. So it's not that it has no effect, it's the place from which all effect arises. Cause being choice and effect being experience, all arise from that neutral state of spacious presence. And emptiness without ego. I wouldn't call it so much emptiness without ego. I would call it a spaciousness free of ego, a will liberated, free of the fear of choice, the fear of experience, the fear of consequence, the fear of the freedom to choose and merely experience. So those are a bit different, because your mind wants to make this about total emptiness, which is a way to try and scare you so that you'll stick with what you've got. It's going to say, God's emptiness, there's nothing there, to try and keep you associated with what your body mind says is reality, which is a great way to keep you limited and not get you back to a joyful neutrality where all power over heaven and earth exists and where your will is free and limitless. What else do we have here? Lewis says, Yeshua states, be vigilant for the kingdom. When not in spacious presence, it is difficult. In neutrality in spacious presence, this is possible. If one is fully in the movie that we have chosen to star in, then our unconscious program is going to rule us. Well, sure. We won't be free. Our will be running. Our choices will be being influenced by this vast database of goods, bads, right, wrongs, past histories, future wants. You know, if I choose to do this, I will think other people will make these choices and therefore I'll lose. Who's played that game? You know, it's like, oh gosh, I'm in a relationship, but if I go out with these other people, my spouse or my partner might think I'm liking somebody else, and then they might choose to leave me, so I won't go. You know, that's not free at all. That's bound in duality. So being vigilant for the kingdom is not being vigilant for concepts about it, not holding and repeating ideas about it. It is being vigilant for being in the feeling communion with that spacious presence and knowing, claiming that as your identity. Light in a field of infinite spacious presence, totally free and sovereign, in an absolute field of neutral, infinite possibilities. So he's really saying to be vigilant for the kingdom is to be vigilant about your identity. And this is very different. We're not just talking about repeating words that say, oh, I'm Christ, I'm Christ, I'm Christ. We've all tried that. We're here because we know repeating words in our mind doesn't do it. That doesn't bring about the transfiguration of our identity that we're all seeking. So even as Patricia just illustrated, even we're in an abiding feeling communion, because we're embodied, that embodied consciousness is still going to be running and operating. So we have to be vigilant to choose our identity and choose in total freedom rather than continuing to play the limiting game of the body-mind. Not trying to get rid of it. It will go on its own when you don't empower it anymore. But trying to get rid of it would suggest that it has a power to limit your true freedom. And it doesn't unless you empower it, unless you believe it, unless you are it. I mean, all of our egos have been going nuts, have they not? For decades. Has spacious presence and its absolute neutrality and free will been affected at all by our crazy dreams? No, not at all. It hasn't even bothered to laugh at us. That's probably too much work on neutrality's part. So Lewis, being vigilant for the kingdom is not being vigilant about ideas or concepts or having your body-mind behave within the frame of a behavioral matrix that you have determined is spiritual or right or holy. It's about being in a feeling communion as light, totally free. I mean, this is a radical transformation. That's why it was called the transfiguration of Christ. This is a powerful and complete transfiguration that happens in the very seat of our being. But it happens not through our effort, but through our willingness to join and affirm that truth and abide there. And let that mystery of presence reveal itself to us over time. So Janet Dean says she's not feeling the answers, although the thoughts that normally try to answer are less. Well, we'll call that a success, Janet. We'll just celebrate the fact that there's less of the opposing thoughts. And I assure you that it's there, but these feelings can be very, very subtle. Because this still small voice of spirit doesn't need to yell louder than the ego. The ego wants it to, because then it's got an opponent to dance with. It's got a conflict to engage. So this is subtle stuff. This requires us getting really, really soft, resting in our breath so that we can feel the answers or come to our own gnosis. And Janet, you and I have done this before. You know what that knowing is. Rather than continuing to look towards the body mind to affirm what your gnosis is. Have any of you noticed this tendency within you that you want your mind to affirm the gnosis that you get? You want your mind to agree with it. Well, isn't that a great way to give illusion power over reality? You're just going to have to go with your gnosis and no longer consult your body-mind to evaluate, is this true or not? Does this fit within my ideas of spirituality? Does this fit within my ideas of what I think it should be? You got to live the knowing and abandon trying to reconcile these two. They're opposites. You're not trying to reconcile them and make them the same. You're asked to identify exclusively as light, as presence, as Christ, whatever you want to call it. Let's see. So Michelle got her question answered through Patricia. So thanks for speaking up, Patricia. Iris says, I find it challenging to be an SP when I'm with other people. That is true. My body mind wants to tell me to tell you, Iris, to find other people. But of course, that's not the truth. So, of course, I want to get Iris on the screen so I can see her. Okay, there she is. So I'm going to make you big, Iris, and unmute you because this will support everybody. Hi, Iris.
You're not naming names, right?
Well, I don't know if we can actually hear you, but I'm going to share anyway. So when we're around other people, our little thinking body mind, that will that's not free, that's will that's conditioned, is like going nuts because it's always trying to affirm itself in relation to the other people around it. It's either trying to manage those other people's perceptions to get them to see you in a way that you want to be seen, or it's trying to avoid or trying to convince them of the way you see them. All kinds of strategies which are trying to affirm something that at its root is totally frightened. It's totally unsure about what it is. It's nuts. It's insane, that little body mind part, because it's so separate. It feels threatened, and the source of the threat is not actually ever the other people. It's the knowing within the ego itself that it has no eternal reality, that it's not what's real. So when you're at the level of your body-mind consciousness, which can be very active in the presence of other people, you've abandoned the kingdom, you've fallen asleep, and now you're engaged in illusion, engaging others at the level of their illusion, ego to ego, body to body, fear to fear, limited choice to limited choice, rather than as spacious presence, abiding with those other body minds at the level of spirit. Because when you're abiding in spacious presence, you know that's the truth of the other being. And you can abandon the games that the mind plays about being liked or being understood or being appreciated or being respected or, being seen as spiritual or, the worst of all, being seen as unspiritual. So that whole game is designed to keep us in fear and doubt. So the fact that you're actually recognizing that you are having a temptation to tempt you out of presence in the presence of other people is actually showing you what you value most. You value more about their body mind than you do about their presence, about their truth. Because that's the level you're choosing to perceive in them and engage in them.
It's interesting what you're saying. I don't know how to implement, because spacious presence for me is closing my eyes and going into my body. The gnosis is a physical sensation. So how do I do that when I talk to someone?
Well, we're getting to that. That's why we've taken so much time. We're 2.5 months into this. before we've gone to the level of engaging eyes wide open in a very chaotic world that ceaselessly is tempting us out of the kingdom, that's ceaselessly tempting us out of presence. So that's why we haven't gotten to some of the exercises, the practicing that we will come to, and some will address just this, because we first have to learn to abide in it and be able to hold it on our own before we run up against temptation. So you can already feel in your being the desire to be in presence all the time, but you're being shown where you are valuing or tempted to not be in it in relationship to others.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting, isn't it? Wow. Because it's all the effort of the doing in the mind. And you know, I mean, at this point in your life, you know that will never work. You know, not saying the right words will never work. Getting people to understand you will never work. Understanding anyone else will never work. It just won't. I mean, it's designed to not work. Presence, however, is effortless. And it's effortless to know it within yourself because it just is. And in that isness, you will know it in the other. And then you can begin to engage at a totally different level that doesn't need understanding, that doesn't need to be right.
Yeah, and not only will you know it in the other, but the other will know it in you. They will see the invitation to enter into this peaceful presence that you are abiding in. Now, it
Maybe
may
not
not
right
be,
away.
Yeah, it may not all
Maybe
be
not right away.
in the body mind. Yeah, they may not recognize it on that level. But in the truth of their being, there will be recognition, and there of the invitation to make other choices. Sometimes it takes time to move through the process.
So just share, when I started meeting you as presence in presence, you didn't like it at
No,
first.
initially I was quite bamboozled because all the old patterns weren't there anymore. So the expectations I had of what response John Mark might have if I did the following things, they all just started to fall apart. And I recognized that I had built an identity for myself based upon the framework that we'd established within that relationship. So now he's stepping out of that framework. He's resting in the truth of his being, and I'm floundering.
It's the truth of your being, too.
Yes, I'm floundering. But my own experience of it was, the more I saw the effect of his choice, the more I saw the peace that he was experiencing, the lack of desire to engage in a previous behavioral pattern that had conflict in it. When those things started...
A codependent game of manipulation?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that one.
It showed me that another choice was possible. So he became the example or the way shower for me to make other choices myself. And you can have the same experiences within your own relationship. Now, how soon that transpires is anybody's guess. It really depends upon the willingness and perhaps the maturity of the other person, because they're still going to identify as body mind.
And not only that, but your change of self is going to threaten them, because they know themselves in relation to yourself as the body mind. And if you change, that will bring up the fear in them, whether they're aware of it or not. Maybe they're not who they think they are. You came to this consciously with that question. They may not be prepared for that. So they may respond in all kinds of very different ways. They may not like it at all. And we had one daughter of our two daughters, they responded very, very differently. One was okay with it. The other one got really, really aggressive and kept amping up her game in order to re-engage me in an old pattern of the games we played together. Now, that was actually beautiful practice for me to face ever-increasing temptations to go back. So she provided me daily practice to be in presence, rather than going back. And a couple of times she got me. I totally abandoned truth and went off on her. But I recognized the difference, and I recognized what drew me out, so I could be more loving and neutral about that in the future, releasing my own judgments. So our body mind really wants this to mean, oh, all of a sudden, all my relationships are going to be so perfect. Everybody's going to see my holiness and see my peace and see my neutrality and my non-judgment, and they won't. They won't, because they're actually not willing to see it within themselves yet. They have to see it in their truth first. And it has to be important enough to them for themselves for them to adopt it. So that's why Yeshua says relationships are the means of our salvation. Because relationships in every moment, whether it's with a grocery store clerk or a daughter or a spouse or anyone else, gives us the choice point to answer the question for yourself, who am I? And when you answer that question, you are decreeing about the other. If I'm this body, mind, and I'm fear, then that's what they must be. If I'm this spacious presence and eternal freedom, that's what they must be. Whatever you choose for yourself, you're choosing along with them. I mean, they still have their own choice, but you can't see yourself as holy and not them. That's not holiness at all. Makes sense?
Yeah.
So we will get to open-eyed practices. They will come, because without it, we can't all sit around with our eyes closed all day. I mean, what kind of peace is that? That's what I call faux enlightenment. We want a living, breathing, embodied, joyful experience of creation. So we will get there, and I will share what was shared with me in terms of actual practices, but maybe some of what we've shared will be helpful for you before that.
That was good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, can you mute yourself for me, please? So where's Tonya? She had a question. Let me find her. I saw her. There she is. Hi, Tonya. Let's see. You're muted, and I couldn't. Oh, there you go. Okay, I got you. Can you hear me now?
Hear you.
Okay, great. So your question was, I experienced the neutrality within myself as conscious, a clear seeing that looks out through my eyes at the world. But if it's conscious, is there a side that's unconscious? Or is there a neutrality beyond consciousness and unconsciousness? So let's explore that answer within your own gnosis. How's that? Rather than just me being like some bullshit guru guy and telling you. So let your eyes close. And in whatever way you get to that feeling communion with that neutrality, just let yourself arrive there. And simply feel what you feel when I ask this question. Spirit, is this neutrality transcendent of consciousness and unconsciousness? Spirit, is it true that this neutrality of presence is, and what we call conscious and unconscious are merely poles, merely aspects of human consciousness within that field of spacious neutrality? And just one more while we're at it. Spirit, is neutrality the pre-existing condition in which all experiences of conscious and unconscious arise?
So during those questions, it was my experience was that just like expanding.
I think it's totally funny that it freezes with her going expanding.
Continually deepening intimacy with an ever-present just there-ness.
I'm going to ask you to repeat that because on our end it froze. It froze right when you said, I feel an expanding. So could you repeat it for us, please?
Yeah. During the questions, I just felt an expanding and a deepening in intimacy with just a there-ness. Like, there wasn't any yes or no, it was just eternal isness of this, like, forever.
And from that, do you feel you have the answers to your questions?
Well, I guess the conscious versus unconscious that was in question for me has to do with that presence that I experience, or that neutrality I experience as light. But if there's light, there must be darkness, or a nothingness to a somethingness, or something that's awake versus sleep, or I don't know.
Okay, well, let's explore that. Would you be curious to have an experience and see if we can derive at your own direct gnosis?
Yeah.
So close your eyes. And in the way that you experience that light, that isness, as you described it, that there-this. Now, Tonya, do me a favor and please turn off that light.
Well, it's sort of turned into a black hole.
But yet, there was light that was aware of the black hole.
Yeah.
So it's impossible for you to become totally unaware. It's impossible for you to be without light. It might look different in your inner awareness, but did you have any doubt about your existence?
No, but does that existence come with the existence of the body mind? I mean, that's, was it the body mind who was aware of that shift? is it the body mind that notices the consciousness of presence?
Those are fascinating.
Sorry.
That's quite all right. Do you want to take that?
No.
Okay. So rest in your light, in that spacious, neutral knowing. Who's asking these questions of who?
There just sort of like arises a laughter.
Oh. So what if, in the face of those tempting questions to move into great confusion and doubt and bewilderment and try to get it right, is it this way or that way? What if you feeled into that light and connected with the laughter? How might that laughter inform you about the relevance of those questions?
Yeah, they just sort of dissolve.
Oh, how about that? So there's your own example of, do I engage the questioning mind or rest in this knowing isness? Am I this presence that just is, or do I chase the trying to understand it, ceaselessly needing to define it more accurately?
Yeah. I'm happy to just rest.
Well, I would encourage you to do so and become increasingly aware of what questions, what doubt, what need to know in your mind tempts you into identity with it. What draws you out of this presence that laughs, that knows, this light, and identifies you as the thinker of those questions. And that's your choice point between truth and illusion. Identity as presence or identity as the body mind who better fucking figure this out in this lifetime because I don't want to come back.
Yeah.
You that feel familiar?
Yeah, pretty much everything, all the time. That's my experience.
All right. So the important thing is that it wasn't actually, in this case, about answering those questions.
Yeah.
Because you could find someone who would answer that question for you and give you a definition. But as soon as that definition gets challenged by someone else, doubt will return. So at some point, you're invited to abandon that whole need to know through definition and proper spiritual, who's what and who's on second and, Christ is on third and who stole fourth kind of thing. So, you stop playing that game and you rest in that joyful knowing that informed you with laughter. Now, I felt that laughter arise because your being knows those questions aren't really questions. They're not true. They're it's kind of like squirrel. Whoa, I better chase that,
Yeah.
So I'm glad you actually knew the answers to your own questions. And I wonder if you'd be willing to move to your own knowing and not look to me or any other spiritual teacher for the answers.
You don't have to answer right now. If you want.
It brings up a whole other questioning.
Yeah,
Of
but
course.
that's just a setup. That's just a setup for our Skype tomorrow. I'll let you cook on that one tonight.
All right, thank you.
Tonya, I love you.
No.
So you can mute yourself for me, please. Okay, so let's see. So John says, so to joyfully create, we can start in spacious presence, feel out our heart's desire, and joyfully bring it into manifestation. I'm going to make this really simple for everybody. Where I went past it. Everybody say hi to John. Go, bro. Like, blah, get on with it. What took you so long? Come on.
It's only been 15 years. I mean, give me a little more time.
That's how we were joyfully created. We were created to create. Not to get right, not to get wrong, not to be holy, not to be this, we were created as totally free creators.
And you know what was great about the last talk with Sonia, when she went into that spontaneous laughter, you know, I guess for a lot of us the last couple of months, it's been this frustrating ride of trying to stay attached to spacious presence while all those doubts and questionings come up, like Tonya was wrestling with just now. And that's what proves to me that we're moving in this direction, is that I've had similar spontaneous laughter like that. And it's just amazing because it's coming right out of spacious presence to just illuminate the whole question. Yeah. and dissolve it, actually.
Sure. Well, Yeshua described this in A Course in Miracles when he says, the world will end in laughter.
Yeah.
The world of question, the world of doubt, the world of needing to know, the world of striving, efforting, get it right, all that shit dissolves in that laughter of a pre-existing presence which is already whole and already complete.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
In the Way of Mastery, Yeshua talks a lot about freeing our relationship to the energy of desire. Because we're all really scared. If we're honest with ourselves, we're scared to death of desire. We're scared to death of desire for abundance. We're scared to death of desire for sex. We're scared to death of desire to wake up. We're scared. Fuck, desire runs us crazy. When in truth, desire, free desire, totally unbounded desire is the truth of our nature. It's how we as Christ know and extend ourselves throughout eternity. So your question about, so to joyfully create, we start in SP, we start, stay, and finish in SP. we don't start there and journey out from it. That's what we think we did. But even as we journeyed into our dream of body, minds, and separations, we're still held in it. We're still there. We haven't actually left. We just created a perception that we did by creating an alternate voice, to creating an opposition that we became identified with, all still within the loving, neutral embrace of SP. So we start there, we stay there, we finish it, we feel our heart's desire, and we bring it into manifestation. Perfect. Yes. Live it, bro. Live it with reckless abandon, in total safety that no matter what you choose, you can't ever damage your ability to choose. You can't ever limit your ability to experience. So have fun, bro.
You heard it here. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank God that we were created that way. It is very, very good. Thank God, God is neutral. And in that neutrality, we live and move and have our being and create our experiences. I mean, think about it, guys. If God's not neutral, we have to get it right.
Mm.
And that's a shitty game to play. It's a painful game to play. It's a frightening game to play. It's a not winnable game to play. Thank God, God is neutral. We are free. We are free. Thank God Almighty, we are free. Woohoo! How do you get neutrality wrong? Anything else to share with us in your awakening wisdom, bro?
No, let's go on to somebody else. I've talked enough.
Okay.
See you later.
Okay. You're on, Rivka. What, you want me to read your question, or you just want to say it?
No, I think that you've been addressing things of my own question, which is that I'm on this edge. I fall back into the mind that's throwing up all these doubts, and I want to get them all answered before I think. This is my thinking. If I get these all answered, then I'll let go. Or if I can be sure that God is good, then I'll let go. But I just realized,
real quick before you move on.
yeah,
If you seek to overcome your doubts, you empower doubt. You validate doubt and make doubt your master.
yes,
That's painful.
it's painful.
Because as you know, you have had brilliant moments of clarity. You have had doubts unequivocally shown to be not true.
How do you know that? That's true.
Because we've all had this.
Okay.
But then the next day, one question empowered in your mind can almost wash all of that away and create doubt that it ever actually occurred. And where did it go? So the engagement with doubt only empowers itself. Fear and doubt's purpose is to create fear and doubt.
I don't.
So to win that game, you don't play it. You stay in that joyful, laughing isness, and you give up your temptation to make doubt real and therefore have to overcome it. You know, Yeshua said, I have overcome the world. Because it is done in me, it's done for you already. We can rest in presence already. A love that's already free and transcendent of that. But our mind says, nope, you can't until you fix and address all this doubt. And that's a temptation for suffering.
Right. You know, so I see there's a choice. I have a choice. Yeah.
Isn't that empowering?
But I feel kind of, I don't have the confidence when the doubts come up, then I don't have the confidence that I can simply make that choice. When I'm in a place of spacious presence, I can make that choice. I can see my doubts arising and choose. Yeah. So once I give a little bit of space to the doubt, I'm back in that realm where I have to try to overcome the doubt. And you're correct. I'm creating this obstacle to overcome. Yeah. I'm empowering it. So it's getting close, but it's still slippery. Yeah.
I would encourage you and invite you to increasingly abide in presence and notice the temptation when you fall. that's when you still have the true power to choose. Once you've fallen and you're in the doubt, of course you think you have to overcome the doubt to get back.
Right.
It's like it's like an impossible journey back.
It is impossible
to catch the subtler and subtler choice points in which you fall. That's where your real power is. That's what you can increasingly awaken to. What's the temptation? Doubt is presently my temptation. I give my devotion to doubt.
Right.
Because you have told yourself that doubt in your consciousness means you're not awake and you're not holy.
Right.
Doubt in my consciousness is proof of my holiness.
Your doubt
Is proof of my innocence. Is the very context in which I know I'm not it.
So your
doubt are my friends that show me who I really am.
Fear and doubt.
Because their presence reveals to me that not there, but the fact that they're in my awareness reminds me that I am presence.
I see.
And not that.
Right.
I'm not holy because they're not there. I'm holy in the presence of them.
Right. Okay.
So I would invite you to check out that perception.
Yeah.
Because as long as you hold that perception, any doubt must mean you're fucked.
I'm fucked.
Any fear must mean you're not holy. You must become it.
Yeah, fear is getting a little easier. Doubt is trickier for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, to use your own words recently, to find the fundamental radical cause of the perception that doubt means separation.
Doubt means I'm in hell forever.
Doubt is reality, and I am doubt.
Yeah. Right. There's something radical going on here. Yeah. I appreciate what you're saying. Yeah.
I celebrate you, my friend. Very well.
Be free.
What, Cindy?
Be free.
Well, you're up next. What was your question here?
Hello. No, I was just saying that sometimes, when people tell about their suffering or when they tell me things, that sometimes I feel like I'm indifferent to what they're sharing with me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So you're approaching the screen.
Share with you about their suffering.
Yeah, and then I feel like I'm indifferent to their suffering, or I'm sort of becoming a zombie. Like nothing from this world can make me happy or can make me unhappy. So what am I doing here? But at the same time, so sometimes Patricia was talking about this happiness, not of this world. And then I understand there's nothing in this world that could make me feel that way, the way I feel when I have this happiness. But at the same time, like there's a voice in my mind that says, you're becoming a zombie. You're just so indifferent to people. Nothing ever touches you. And yeah.
Oh, your voice is saying you're losing your humanity and your compassion. Maybe you're just losing your fear and the unconscious agreements we all have to join in that. But I'd like to ask you a question, if I may.
Yeah.
Just feel into that neutrality, that total space of your being, your spacious self, because I know you love A Course of Love. And just see what you feel when I ask this question. Spirit, as I rest in total neutrality,
Did you throw the basketball
in that field of indifference to what another's suffering is, am I free to choose to engage them with compassion? Am I free to engage them in a way that might be truly helpful?
Yes, I feel free to do what is truly helpful and not what I think I should do as a spiritual person or as a loving person.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course, Yeshua refers to this in every of those pathways. Father, show me what to say and what to do. Or this holy instant I give to loving neutrality to inform me. Because there's a little bit of your consciousness that's still saying neutrality equals zombie. Neutrality equals indifferent zombie, rather than neutrality frees me as spirit to move and choose and be in a way that might be truly helpful. So your consciousness has arrived at the recognition of that neutrality, but is still carrying some subtle judgments that are impinging on your ability to freely choose and be moved from freedom in a way that could compassionately be truly helpful. Now that might mean, like Yeshua, turning the money changers over and saying, stop what you're fucking doing. Or it might be engaging them in a way that might look like you are validating their suffering. Who knows what it'll be? I have no idea. There isn't a behavioral matrix to tell radical free spirit what it should or shouldn't do. It knows what's for the highest good. And this is when we can hit a new level of fear that we don't even think's there, because that radically free spirit might move us in total ways that don't look spiritual at all, but might actually be helpful, like turning over money changer tables or performing a miracle for self-sake.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Really good question. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see what else we got going here. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, we've been at it a while. So, just one last comment here. Michelle says, it's interesting how questions seem to dissolve when in SP. A question that felt so very important a minute ago dissolves into nothingness, a space with more space. And she puts in parentheses, infinitude. So this is it. We're asked to stop the pattern of looking outside of ourselves for answers to our questions, because that perpetuates separation and engages someone else, invites someone else to engage with us in that way, and seek the answers within. Move into spacious presence and let them be revealed. You may find me or some others who've played in this state a little bit longer who can give you some guidance. But if they're truly helpful, they'll invite you into your own experiential discovery for yourself. How to find your own answers and your own truth. Or they might point to somewhere and say, well, look here in your consciousness, try this and see what you discover. Isn't that really cool? So neutrality, which to the ego, body, mind seems like death, seems like zombieville, seems like indifference, is the ground of true freedom. It is the ground from the radically free and unencumbered Christ can be moved in a world to be truly helpful. So cultivate neutrality, but not what your mind says, oh, neutrality would only do this or would do that or wouldn't do this and wouldn't do that. That's not it. Neutrality is the state of freedom, where the will is now one with the source and you can freely be moved, not bound by fears of expectations of others or past behavioral expectations or future consequences. So neutrality might be end of life to the ego, but it's the foundation of the infinite free will and ceaseless life of the Christ, of the light that we all are. So I invite you in this week to be in playful discovery about this deep neutrality and its freedom, and how to move from that freedom rather than from the behavioral body-mind strategies of right and wrong, where everything's anything but neutral. So play with that joyfully, curiously, in great wonder and discovery, and find that neutrality is life, eternal life, not death at all. Wonderful. Cindy, would you like a song?
Well, first I would like to add that.
Oh, go.
So we still occasionally have requests coming in for joining the group, and we've given it some consideration over the past few weeks as to how to handle those. And the conclusion that we've drawn is that this far into the process, it's probably not beneficial to someone coming in new. If you look at your own experience and you see how much has shifted within you over the past 2+ months, you can imagine that if someone joined now, they'd likely to be fairly confused and would not have the foundation that we've been building for several weeks. So we've made the choice that we will close registration for this. We are investigating, playing around with other ways in which we could extend these opportunities to people who have expressed an interest, or perhaps people who joined us at the beginning and then for whatever reason didn't continue through these weeks. So we're looking at some options where we can invite more people in to this process, and we'll start back at a beginning point and build the foundation with them. So as we've got that figured out, we will let you know, but just wanted to advise you of that choice on our part.
We're really all kind of at a mystery school here, and if you haven't noticed, there's been some brilliant methodology to our coming together. Each has been a step that builds, and we've had time to integrate and play and discover. And if we don't do it in that way, we won't build a strong foundation for somebody else. So we'll see how we can celebrate them in other ways. PayPal, I'm going to remember tonight. Please make some donations. Cindy and I are no longer in Florida with a good Wi-Fi, so we're having to pay for a very expensive Verizon cell service for our Wi-Fi, which is like $750 a month. It's crazy. That's like, anyway. So we would very much welcome your donations. If you haven't given in a while, please consider giving. If you have, we thank you, yes. But we invite you all to move into presence, not to give from guilt, but move into presence and let that presence inform you of what to give and what to share and how and in what ways, because we would really appreciate to do this, and we can't do it without some of these technological resources. Yeah. But I will mention one other thing, that you'll be getting an email this week. We are at a stage in our communion where it's time for us to open a greater doorway in each of our beings to the presence of the Master Yeshua himself. So he's going to use one of his previous channelings through a way of mastery. So I'll send you each a link to that. It's lesson 10 from the Way of the Heart about a meditation into the heart of Christ, which is what we've been doing from the very outset, little by little, little by little. But most of you are at the stage where you can truly join with him in a significantly greater way. So I'll send that out with some brief instructions from him on his invitation to you, how to engage that and abide with him in that way, because he very much chooses to welcome you and play with you as you awaken ever more deeply, because he wants to add his power to yours and yours to his. So keep an eye out for that. I'll post it on the Facebook page and send it out in an email. So, oh yeah, we've got some folks in Europe who it's like 2 a.m. in the morning when we do this, and they've asked if we might be willing. Janet's one of them. If we would be willing to move this to 7 o'clock on Tuesdays instead of 8. So if you can raise your hand, if you would prefer 7 o'clock over 8, please raise your hand. All the foreigners are raising their hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Going to the next page. I can't see the people that are just on the phone, but you guys can hold your hands up too. All right, now if you'd like to keep it at 8 o'clock, please raise your hand. Keep them up. Okay, it's going to stay at 8 o'clock. So there's the answer for the people in Europe who hear this. You'll just have to catch the recordings. Okay, now can we dance?
We can dance.
We can dance. Ooh, that would be a great song. We can dance. We can dance. Let's find that one. I have to get on YouTube for that. Who sung that? What wasn't that Bowie?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Here we go. Sorry, I don't like that version. I'm going to go get Bowie. That's somebody. Sorry, we got to dance. This is the one.
Put on your red shoes and dance the blues. To the song playing on the radio. While the lights up your face.
Come on, guys, dance like everybody's right.
Sway through the crowd to an empty space.
Come on, Lisa.
If you say run, I'll run with you. If you say hide, we'll hide. My love for you would break my heart in two. If you should fall into my arms, tremble and come through. Under moonlight, this serious moonlight. And if you say run, I'll run with you. And if you say hi, we'll hide. Because for you would break my heart in two. If you should walk into my arms and tremble like a put on your red shoes and dance the blues. Oh, life, the serious moonlight.
It's just me.
Okay.
Turn around and get
Oops. Bye, everybody. We'll see ya probably Saturday for celebration. Play well, friends. It's all neutral. Thank God. We are free. We are free.